All right, so let's talk about a few moves. I know that I teased Thierry Henry, but let's start with Marc McKenzie. He's making the move from Genk in Belgium to Toulouse in Liga in France, and I think this is a good move for him. Was on the bench in their first game, but didn't get in, which makes sense. He just made the move, obviously trying to get assimilated with his team. But I think this is a nice move for him in particular. And what I think is interesting, Mauricio Pochettino has coached in the French league. So he knows the level. He knows what Marc McKenzie is going to see on a week-to-week basis. And I think that's of big value. Belgium, a little bit of an unknown commodity in terms of, level. And
it's a feeder league. It's a feeder league.
Right. And well, we could argue Ligue 1 is as well, but it's a lot more competitive, I would argue. And I just think it helps that we have, like, Pochettino has been at home with his coaching staff going, okay, how do we get a win against Montpellier? He knows that league pretty intricately. So I think that's a benefit to Marc McKenzie. How are you feeling about this move for him?
I love it. Marc McKenzie is a great person. And I've seen his talent because I've gotten a chance to play with him when he was obviously a rookie with the Philadelphia Union, but he's come a long way and he's had to work his butt off to be consistent at the center back position with Genk. And he was playing next to Carlos Cuesta, obviously, who we saw excel in Copa America. But this, for me, is one of those moves where you're taking a huge step up. The pace is going to be dramatically increased. And then, you're playing against players who are playing in Europe. And you play against PSG, you're playing against Lille, you're playing against Rennes and Marseille. These are top clubs in Monaco. So I'm excited to see how he fits in. And if he can succeed here, guess what? He's getting a call from Poch direct.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, one thing that we hadn't brought up yet is Cameron Carter-Vickers, who just started for Celtic this past weekend, 3-1 win for the Hoops over Hibs. And Cameron, CCV was very good. They crossed over at Tottenham. That dawned on me this weekend as I was thinking about Mauricio Pochettino. That's something we hadn't mentioned before. So what happened, though, was that CCV never really broke into the first team and went on loan for all the years that they split, a couple of years at Tottenham. But there's a familiarity with Cameron Carter-Vickers, with Mauricio Pochettino. And do you think that's a good thing? Because clearly he didn't do enough to get into the first team.
Yeah, I was going to say he didn't play.
Right. So is it a good thing that he knows your game pretty intimately, or is it not so good? And I would say that he's obviously grown as a player since then. But CCV didn't look great during Copa America. Lead up to Copa America, it just didn't look very sharp. And so I wonder what that means. Where are you on this Pochettino CCV relationship?
I wouldn't. Would any of us be shocked if he got called into a camp and
no?
Poch would
I think
go,
he should be.
Let's see how much he's progressed, right? Because he was young when he was at Tottenham playing under Pochettino. So at that point, he was not ready. And then you go on loan, then you end up at Celtic. You become one of the best defenders in the league. And you're playing in Europe. So I think for Pochettino, he's going to go, all right, let's see how much you've grown since the days that I knew you as a player. So I don't expect him not to get called in. I think he'll get called in. It's just, will he take that opportunity? And then how much does he see? Does he call in Marc McKenzie right away? Does he call in, Chris Richards and Trusty? And, who does he call in? Because I'm sure he's going to be watching all these players play. And there's a good question here in the comments, Jimmy, just about center backs and, what makes a good center back at this stage in the international game, a U.S. men's national team player. And, I guess, what are the qualities needed to partner, let's say Chris Richards or, whoever is playing in the back. What are those? How do you find the right balance?
Great question. Yeah, Dan, thank you so much for listening and good question. And thanks for teeing that up, Chuck. I will say that defensively, can you do two things at once? So can you cover the respective player in your back line that might need some cover at that point? Or if you can see things start to unfold in transition, are you putting yourself and your teammates in good spots to make plays? I remember Richard Goff was my teammate when I was in San Jose my first year. He played for Scotland and he played in 2 World Cups for Scotland. And, I asked him for advice. And then the one thing he said to me was, you got to put out fires before they start. And yes, I understood what that meant, but to actually go out there and execute that in real time, making split-second decisions and having the trust of your teammates to put them in good spots to make plays is something different. And so it took me a long time to really have that evolve in my own game. So when I think about it, that would be one, putting fires out before they start. But that falls into, can you do two things at once? Essentially, can you defend your own player, but also be in a position to help out if needed? Can you recognize danger quickly? This is all the defensive side of the ball. And then when we have the ball, the number one thing I think because when the defenders, and you guys see it, no matter what the level, if you're having a team that wants to play out of tough situations, you got to be composed and you got to be confident and you got to want the ball. Chuck, you've been in spots before or played with guys before where some days they want the ball and some days they don't. And you need to be somebody that wants that responsibility and put yourself in tough spots to play out of difficult spot, and knowing that if you lose the ball, that could end up being a goal, an easy goal.
Do you see Pochettino playing direct, or do you see him playing like pretty
he feels very
played out of the back?
No, okay. I think there'll be an element of, based on the opponent, is this one like, let's say the U.S. versus Canada. I still don't know yes, they've announced that Mikey Varas is going to take over those games, but if Pochettino's like, I want to take those games, what are they going to say? Like,
well, they could do the same thing that Emma Hayes did, which is like coach from Skype or Zoom, where you're basically telling Twyla Kilgore to say, all right, these are who's going to play. These are the tactics. And then she's going to be watching from afar. But Pochettino could still have some influence on who's picked, how he plays.
Totally. Oh,
right?
I would say,
but I don't think he'll be on the sidelines.
Okay, that's fair. But let's say Canada, though, for instance, we know that Jesse's coming. We know he's going to high press the shit out of us.
He's coming.
We know that's coming. But the best way, if you can play through that pressure, then Canada's they're in trouble. Now
we've already done it.
Right. So if we play through them, then there's an element of that's going to lend itself to getting our guys in good spots to make plays. If we elect to just lump the ball and try to win the second ball in their half or higher up the field, that's a different element of the game, and you might want to bring a different set of players, potentially different player profiles to solve those problems. So yeah, I'm curious to see what we try to do. But if you have players that want the ball under some intense pressure, then that's going to be, it's going to be interesting. So
that's a great question from Cyrus Pearson. Do you think Tim Ream will get called up or start games under Poch?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if we should.
Come on, our resident center back's got to know. What's your preference?
Well, in terms of being a leader, be able to organize, being able to play out of pressure. Another thing I didn't add, can you hit that big switch, which is huge? Like if a ball comes back to you, it's tight on one side. Do you have it in your bag to be able to hit that big 40, 50-yard switch to the other side and unlock that pressure? Not all of our guys have that. Tim Ream has it. So if you're trying to settle the team right away, maybe you bring him in and then you just kind of see where everybody else is in the player pool. Okay, maybe bring him in against Canada and then you can evaluate accordingly, even though he's a known commodity at this point. But yeah,
some of these people in the comments, they're bringing the heat. They're bringing some good questions. So
I love it.
Hey, they've been doing their homework. Appreciate y'all.
Keep doing your homework. Listen. What I love about our fan base in particular is that they're becoming more and more students of the game. And the intricacies and subtleties and nuances of how we should move as a group and individual players and formations and how it all I love it. So keep all these questions coming.